In the previous course, you learned what HTML was and how you can build the structure of a website with HTML. It's now time to start learning about CSS. CSS stands for Cascading Style Sheets. If HTML builds the structure of a web page, CSS is what we use to style or change the way our website looks. Let's start off by learning how we can add CSS to an HTML document.
So the very first thing we're going to do here is create our own CSS file. And I have my folder for my website here. We have an index and an images folder. And here's what our index file looks like. We have our profile picture, we have some headlines, some text, and a list here. And what we're going to do here is I'm just going to do some basic styling to our web page. So we have our images folder, our index folder, and what I'm going to do is create a new folder and call it CSS. And this folder is going to actually contain our CSS files. Inside the folder, I'm going to create a new text document, and I'm going to call it style. I'm going to open it up, and then I'm going to resave it as style.css. The .css extension will actually make this notepad file a CSS file, or a cascading style sheet file. And we can see this here in the type section here. It actually shows up as a CSS file. So that's good to go. If we right click it, we can edit it with Notepad++, and now we have our HTML file and our CSS file. And before we work on our HTML, I'm going to actually go back and open up this index file just to make sure I have the right index file opened up here in Notepad++. So the next thing we can do is we're going to figure out the different types of CSS and the different ways we can add CSS to our index.html document. And there's a few ways to do this, and I'm going to show you guys a way that you can find answers to questions you have online. So go to Google, and I'm going to type in how to link a CSS file to HTML. We can see the results that pop up here. I'm going to go ahead and click on the first one, and here we have a page that tells us the different ways we can link our CSS to HTML. So this is a common way for web developers to find questions to any answers they have on the internet. So just kind of keep that in mind. So just to kind of give you an idea, we have an external or internal ways of having CSS in our file. We can have it separate like this, or we can have it actually inside our HTML. I'm going to show you guys in this video how to do it internally. Then in the next video, I'm going to show you how we can link our external file to our HTML document. So first thing we can do is inside our head tag is create a style tag. And within the style tag, we're going to actually stick our CSS. So I'm going to type some code here, and you're probably not going to understand it, but that's okay. Just kind of observe what I'm doing for now and pay attention to what this does. Alright, so what this code is doing is it's selecting the paragraph elements on our page. So we can see here, if we scroll down a little bit, the paragraph section, and it's changing the color of the text here to be red. That's what that color red means. So if I save this file and then open our page, we can see that all the text in our paragraph elements is now red. You'll see that the anchor element isn't red, but this is because we're styling the paragraph text, not the paragraph anchor elements. So kind of keep that in mind, because that's something that kind of happens to new web developers, and it can kind of confuse you. But that's what that P does here. And we're selecting our paragraph element and changing the color. Let's try and do something else here. Let's center all the content of our web page to be in the center of the page. So I'm going to select our HTML tag, which is basically everything in our HTML document. And I'm going to give it the CSS property of text align center. And what this does is it's going to center align all the elements inside the HTML tag, which basically is our whole document. So if I refresh, we can see here that everything is now centered in our page, except for these bullet points at the side here, but we can fix that later. So this is the introductory to CSS, basically how we can style web pages with CSS. It's very powerful, and you're going to learn some different ways to do that throughout this course. But for now, this is an example of how we can add CSS within an HTML web page, and this is called inline CSS. In the next video, I'm going to show you how you can do external CSS and add it to your web page.